Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we are back with Zeri's basic guide. Now Zeri is a very unique marksman because of the fact that her auto attacks are manually aimed. So she's very unique in that sense. She is also, technically speaking, on paper has the longest range in the game, longer than Caitlyn, but in practice actually has a very short range because her bullets start to spread out and you cannot actually attack someone at maximum range. If not, you won't really deal very much damage to them. However, she is sort of a late game hyper carry that focuses on movement speed. She basically gains a lot of movement speed from stealing shields from enemies as well as from her ulti. So basically she gets a lot of movement speed to kite around in fights and is very strong in the late game. So with all that said, we're gonna jump straight into the practice tool and of course take a look at Zeri's skills and abilities. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is going to be her passive, and the passive to some extent cannot really be demonstrated in the practice tool. So the first part of the passive dictates that whenever you damage someone who has a shield, you're going to shield yourself for 60% of the damage you have dealt to the shield. So basically, for example, if I have a dummy here, let's say this is a set, he has a shield. When I damage him, I'm actually gonna, shield myself for 60% of the damage I just dealt. So here, for example, I did like I don't know, 116 damage. I'm gonna get a shield of roughly like 62 or something like that. I'm gonna get a small amount of shield from that. Second part is whenever you get a shield, you're gonna gain movement speed for 3 seconds, and it's 15% movement speed. So you can do this in 3 ways. Number 1, you steal shields from enemies, you're gonna get movement speed. Number 2, your ally shields you get movement speed. Number 3, which I'm gonna show you guys here, if I pop the barrier, boom, I'm gonna get the extra movement speed. So this is actually giving me 15% extra movement speed in case you guys did not notice. But yeah, now I'm slowed down because I don't have the barrier anymore. Next up, we're going to talk about her Q. So her Q is actually a pretty long ability because the first part talks about her basic attacks. So here you guys can see that whenever she basic attacks, she fires a burst of 6 rounds. So this is like 6 bullets, like that. So like Ashe's Q, basically this is going to give you the interaction with Black Cleaver that's going to proc it instantly. So Zeri 1 attack, boom, Black Cleaver is instantly procced. Although she doesn't really build Black Cleaver nowadays, but Black Cleaver will instantly proc because this counts as 6 shots. So the next part of the passive dictates that she cannot get more than 1.5 attack speed. So when she exceeds 1.5 attacks per second, it's 50% of the attack speed in excess will be converted into bonus AD instead. So you generally only want to build 1 or maximum 2 attack speed items in Zeri's build because the conversion, while nice, is not completely worth it. You rather just build more AD items and not buy too much attack speed because that wouldn't really make sense. And the final part is the active. So you guys can see this is a small circle. Basically, you're just gonna zap that area and they're just gonna take damage. So this actually works in an AoE fashion. So for example, if there are 3 people that all just standing together, you can actually hit all of them at the same time like that. Boom, they're all gonna take the same amount of damage, no damage reduction there. And they're all going to actually take magic damage as well as get slowed for 2 seconds. Next up is her W. So her W is kind of like a mixture of Jinx's W and like Lux's ult. So here you guys can see it's a really long range spell. It basically allows you to hit someone, first target hit like that, and it's gonna deal damage and slow them basically like Jinx's W. Of course, you can also use it to check bushes. So here, if you guys can see, if there's an enemy inside and you launch it inside, you can actually see that there's someone inside. It doesn't give you vision, but you can actually see that there is someone inside the bush because it stops. Now, the other way you can use your W is through a wall. Basically, when you use it through a wall, it becomes a laser, like that. Basically, similar to Lux Ultimate, so you can do this. Obviously, when you're in the laser form, it's gonna hit everybody equally inside the laser. So for example, if there are 3 dummies here and I launch my laser through this wall, all 3 of them are going to actually just take damage. Now, using the laser form, you could get an extremely long range. So for example, if I'm all the way over here and I launch my W here, it's actually going to extend all the way like that. So here, this is like your base range. On the wall, you're going to get double the range. So here you can see I can launch laser all the way from down there. So like that, you can actually get massive range on your laser. Now next up is your E. So basically what your E is, it is a short dash that enhances your next 3 auto attacks. So here you guys can see that your basic attacks will get blocked by enemies. So for example, over here there are 2 enemies. You can see I'm only able to attack the first enemy like that. Of course, attacks, you can manually drag to choose where you're attacking. Didn't really mention that, but I thought that was pretty obvious, but I guess I should have mentioned that when I was talking about her Q. But yeah, so here you can only attack this first enemy, but if you use your E, you're actually going to strike through enemies for the next 3 attacks. So here you guys can see, I'm able to attack both of them at the same time, but only for 3 attacks, and afterwards I'm only attacking the first actual dummy again. So, of course, another part of the ability is the fact that when you attack enemies, you're going to reduce the cooldown. So here, for example, I have 24-second cooldown. I'm going to attack. You can see that my cooldown is getting lower by just attacking enemies by 1 second every time I hit an enemy. And the final thing I wanted to point out is the fact you can go through walls. So if you use it on a wall, you guys can see the indicator, you can actually go through a wall. So this is not a very good example, but I'm going to go to a bigger wall. Here you can see I'm able to actually jump over this wall, and this is something you got to practice a little bit in the practice tool, because you guys can see, for example, if I wanted to end up here over to this side, but if, for example, oops, press wrong button there, but if I screw it up, for example, I'm trying to end up over there on the other side, I can actually end up dashing into the pit by accident. That's not what really I want. And similarly here, you can actually dash all the way across the dragon pit here. So you can actually dash from here all the way to the other side like that, all the way over here. But if you mess it up, you're going to end up dashing into the dragon pit instead. And this can get you killed if you don't do it, if you don't dash correctly, obviously. So here, for example, you can go through this all the way to the other side. But if, of course, you mess it up, and you end up screwing up your dash, instead of going to the other side like what you wanted, you're going to end up inside the blue buff pit, which again could get you killed. So finally, you have your ultimate. Now your ultimate is a very, very long ability to explain, so bear with me as I try to explain how the ultimate works. So the first part of your ultimate is when you press it, you're going to do a huge AoE explosion in the area around you like that. So you can see, boom, it does magic damage to everybody around you, and it's gonna put you into a ultimate mode. You can see that over the ultimate there, you can see that the thing is counting down, and during that time, you're in your ultimate mode. And basically what this does is, when you're in your actual ultimate and you pop your ultimate, when you attack, basically you're gonna, first up is you're gonna gain 25% attack speed as well as a little bit of movement speed, and the movement speed depends on how many stacks you have. You can see the stacks down here, I have 24 stacks. I get 8 stacks per enemy hit on my initial explosion, and when I attack enemies, you can see I'm gaining stacks here, 27, 28, and I can use Q. So once again, boom, 8 stacks per enemy. I attack 27, 25, 26, 27. I can Q, 28, W, 29. So anything basically gives you a stack. And basically for each stack, you gain 0.5% extra movement speed. And yeah, so you gain, obviously, again, the 25% attack speed. And as you guys notice when I'm attacking, you also gain a static shift effect of having your bullets bounce around, as you guys can see here. That's also a result of your ultimate. And also, you guys will notice that normally your attack is this 6-shot deal, but your ultimate is going to convert it into this triple shot instead, like that. You see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is 3 attacks, and this is not 6 attacks. So this is not going to instantly proc Black Cleaver, but you can see it attacks a lot faster. And the last thing about this ability is when you get a takedown, your ultimate duration is going to get increased by 4 seconds for every takedown. So maximum you can increase it by is of course 20 seconds if you kill all 5 people. And now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, we can finally move on to talking about Zeri's leveling order. So level 1, you generally want to take Q, of course, to start poking people in lane. Then at level 2, you take your E for the dash to reposition or to strike through minions and enemies to deal damage. Then you take your W at level 3, you max Q first, of course you take alt whenever available, and you max your E second, and of course take alt whenever available, and you max your W last. Okay, so now, Zeri combos. Well, she doesn't really have any combos, but there is a sort of trick you can do, which is, you guys know how you can W through a wall like this? You can actually do that when you're in your E. So for example, if I'm Eing through this wall here, I can actually W while I'm in the wall. So this is kind of useful to increase your damage a little bit. So for example, a use case of this is, for example, it's a little bit difficult to pull off, by the way, but if a enemy is here, for example, I may not even get this on my first try. Let's say there's enemies here. I'm coming over from here. let's say I'm going to E over to here. I can actually W them while I'm still in the wall. Basically what this is going to do is going to, of course, increase my damage, because my W is already going to be launching by the time I land. Of course, so here, once again, you can also do it the other way. Of course, as I said, it's a little bit difficult to land, so something like that, maybe a little bit more obvious of how it could be useful, but again, this is something that needs to be practiced, and it's really easy to mess up. As you guys can see, I hit only one instead of both of the enemies there, and that's really the only kind of Zeri combo you really need to know, because really, with Zeri, it's pretty straightforward. You just, you know, launch whatever ability is appropriate, dash when appropriate, and basically when you're in the all-in, you ulti, and then you just start attacking, you know, and use all your abilities when appropriate. It's pretty much just that simple, nothing too complicated about that. And now for the last thing, which is the tips and tricks. So the first tip and trick is going to be a pretty funny one, but you actually want to auto-aim your autos majority of the time, because you see, the autos, you have to actually manually aim it like that. But the auto-aim is pretty intelligent most of the time. It's going to attack the enemy that you want most of the time. Now, the only kind of exceptions to this is when you're in a team fight, for example, and you want to, for example, it's targeting this guy, and you want to target this guy instead, then you want to actually manually auto to attack the guy that you want. And the other exception is when you're CSing minions, for example, like that, and there's an enemy dummy here. The auto target like that is going to attack the enemy dummy because it's going to prioritize champions. But if I want to attack minions, I actually have to press my minion button and it will help me auto target the minion. You can see I'm just pressing my minion button here. It's attacking the minions. If I press my normal attack button, it will prioritize champions. So you don't really have to even manually aim, because if you manually aim, you have a higher chance of just missing. So just tapping the button and letting it aim by itself is most of the time a generally good idea, which makes Zeri even easier to play. And the final thing, which I actually kind of mentioned just now already, is to use your W for vision. So for example, if there is an enemy over this wall, for example, there's an enemy here, I can just W over the wall to check. So for example, I can W over here, I can see him over there in the wall. This is a lot more useful to check things like dragons. So for example, I can W in here, and I can check if the people are doing dragon or not. But that's pretty much it for Zeri's basic guide. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.